enough. As good enough.
We know. Welcome to our weekly podcast, Good Enough, with your co-hosts, Sam Lewis and Mark Lips. Our goal on Good Enough is to interview guests who do not let being perfect keep them from achieving their dreams. Whether it be writing a book, growing a business, achieving some other success, all of these people are heartfelt, passionate, and good enough to be noticed and guests on our podcast. We welcome them, and we also thank you for joining us today.
Well, hey, Mark, what's happening?
Well, it's all happening, man. I'm just all about apples right now. Our orchard is, a lot of the apples have been picked, but, we have an orchard of apples and pears and plums and persimmons and peaches. The peaches the birds got before we could really get to them. But anyways, you know what? I bought a grinder and I bought a press, and I'm making fresh pressed apple juice. And one of the reasons I'm doing it because we drop so much fruit, right? And so I'm getting that fruit, and I want to try to make something from it. I want to be more efficient with this fruit.
There's apple trees all over town. They're just dropping their apples and are rotting on the ground. It always makes me wonder, and I was walking the other day and pulled one off the tree and ate it.
Yeah.
I didn't die, by the way.
Oh, well, you're not going to die.
But somebody said, they look at that fruit like it's, that tree's like 30 years old. So, that ain't a new kind of apple. That's them old kind of apples.
But you know what? Those are the ones people pay big money for.
Yeah, it wasn't super sweet.
Heirloom. They're heirloom apples. Heirloom apples, like Gravensteins. You can't find we have some Gravenstein trees out here. Those are considered heirloom apples, and you can't find them in the stores. And when people find out you got Gravensteins, they go, "Oh man, wow, great!" There's all kinds of varieties.
I read a whole thing that companies are patenting their apple hybrids. They patent the name, or they copyright the name and patent the actual hybrid.
Well, yeah. There's doing all kinds of. Look, what is it? The cuties. Those are a combination of an orange and a tangerine, something like that. That's happening all over. But what I want to do, I'm trying to get rid of some of the waste. But here's what I worry about. I probably shouldn't say anything, but here's what I worry about. I pick up these apples off the ground, and I talked to this guy, apple guy, Sebastopol, who, he says, "Oh yeah, just throw them all in the grinder." Well, I wonder if there are any bacteria issues.
Well, I think that's why that's a good, I would wash them first.
I Googled, oh, well, yeah, there's that. But no,
but isn't that why you let your cider get hard? It kills all the bacteria.
Oh man, I nothing gets hard around. No, sorry. What?
Sorry, listeners. Sorry for that.
Oh, too hard. It's very blue around here.
Well, we're all adults.
I'm looking at maybe doing some hard cider. That's the next thing, but I can't sell hard cider. I'm not even sure I can legally sell this apple juice. But we have our Big Valley Small Farms tour, as you know, coming up. And that's where 5 farms, and we open our gates and people come in, and Tammy's going to have, tomato ginger jam made from our tomatoes, and, I'll have apple juice. Oh, I made apple chips, apple and pear chips, like potato chips. And
somebody just walked in my office. Hang on. If I get killed.
What? Hey, Sam, don't leave me. Okay, listen, listeners, while he's gone, I'm going to do some, we're going to pay our bills.
Natalie came back. She's forgot something. That's all right.
And
I thought maybe I was going to be murdered or something.
And they said
I could still be murdered. I mean, Natalie might do it.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night. Anyway, just so we get this out of the way, listeners, Good Enough, our podcast is brought to you by our wonderful sponsors, and they do include over here on the left coast, the Happy Friday Neighbors newsletter, which comes out every Friday, has for I always say 25 years. It's probably longer now than 25 years. I don't know. And if you want to be on it, it's just a little bit of everything from a third grade perspective. And then also the Ripe Choice Farms Stay and Catering. Come and stay at our place. I'll let you pet some mini pigs and see a big, huge tortoise walking around, and some chickens. You can get a farm to fork breakfast and dinner and box lunches for the wineries and cheese and charcuterie board. My wife's a chef, and we try to do as much. We locally source and do farm to fork as much as possible. So, and excited to do it. I mow. That's what I do. That's my contribution. Okay.
Oh, Mark. And you do a damn good job of it too, by the way.
Trains and I mow. All right, Sam, what do you got?
Over here in Central Illinois, we're brought to you by Pride Staff, a full service staffing agency, temp to hire, direct hire, just about everything. And also by the Finally Friday Philosophy, the PPP, which is a newsletter that comes out also on Friday, not as long as the Happy Friday Neighbors, but for a fair amount of time. And it's a curation of comedy and poems.
More intelligent, much smarter than
it's at times it could be
super intelligent, refined, classy, looking for, you go to the Sam's newsletter.
I appreciate that, Mark. And hey, thanks for publishing my poem.
That's one of your better ones. It actually had
rhyming. Because it rhymes and you like rhyming poems.
I don't know why you write these things and you say they're poems that don't even rhyme. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Robert Frost even rhymed.
Well, he's Robert Frost. He's,
Yeah.
Emily Dickinson didn't always rhyme and often didn't rhyme.
Well, but that's
I think, you start with the Emily Dickinson poem, you just think about somewhere in there, somebody's dead.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that poem, somebody's dead. Most of her poems had something to do with somebody. Huh?
In whose?
Emily Dickinson.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. There's some dark. A writer friend of mine said she just wrote the poems like that, but otherwise she would have clawed the wallpaper off the walls.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, I did put something in my Happy Friday, and I think you were the impetus for that. I had never heard of that. I saw that you posted it, I think, at some point, something that's a phenomenon that goes on in the Midwest in your area, and that is corn sweat.
Yeah. I knew something was causing the humidity, the sudden humidity, but I didn't know it was corn sweat until I saw that article.
Corn sweat.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, listeners.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
You could just see it overnight. The sky just in the horizon just turns blue, from all the humidity suddenly. And I don't know, maybe you have, Mark, but I don't know if our listeners have been in the middle of a cornfield in August when the wind's not blowing, but you can hear the corn grow and it's spooky.
Yeah.
That squeaking,
It's so hot there. Does it pop sometimes? Do you ever get popcorn?
I don't know. I've never actually seen it pop. But
yeah. Oh,
hey, did you see my post on the aspens? Did you know that about the aspen?
Well, yes. And I've seen aspens all over Colorado, all that quaking aspens. In fact, I was thinking of planting a quaking aspen out here. But that particular clone range, listeners, is a series of 200 basically 200, it looks like 200 trees. It's really 200 branches from one root, which, I mean, it's just amazing. Yeah.
Have you read that novel, The Overstory?
Don't think so. Does
Written
anybody?
by a professor from Champaign, but it's a novel about, and it's basically about trees. I know kind of what you like. You would love. It's kind of dense, but
Yeah.
you would love this book.
Why do you think I would like a novel about trees unless they're snipers in the trees?
Because you love nature. Hey, I wanted to talk.
I love nature. I'm not sure.
I want to talk about the event, the paddleboard adventure. I'm telling you what, I saw those pictures and went, somebody in this picture is crazy.
Beast.
Or maybe all of them.
That's always been for listeners. My oldest son just did a traditional paddle called the Catalina Paddle Classic, and it's now called Paddle Classic International. And from Catalina Island back over to where our old stomping grounds, Manhattan Beach, here in Southern California. And it's 32 miles over open water. Each paddler has to have an escort boat. And that's actually the final step of being a true waterman, is to do that paddle. And there are people who've done it, like Doug Weems, a guy I know, he's done it 17 times. And they had a great day that day. The water, I mean, it was just a beautiful day. Last year, not so great. There were people who got out last year and said, never again, I'll never do this again. Took them 10 hours. Normally that's a 7-hour,
To me, it looked like they're in the middle of the ocean.
They are. Is that
wise?
Oh, yeah, because you're going by, you see sharks, you see mola molas, which are these big, huge 400-pound fish. Of course, you see dolphins, you see, you see all those things.
That's where they live.
That's their home.
Yeah, that's their home.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was impressed.
Yeah.
And you camped out the night before on the island?
Yeah, we camped out night before on Catalina Island because we were pushed off at around 6 a.m. And my son said, Dad, you didn't bring a tent. I said, what do I need a tent for? Me and another guy just slept out under the stars. I love it. That's the way.
Do you have a sleeping bag?
I had a sleeping bag, yeah. Yeah. Then my pack I just used for my pillow.
I've seen you a couple times in your life sleeping out under the stars without a sleeping bag or tent.
Many times. One time out behind the rec club.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know how many of those times you actually had clothes on, but
my butt off.
But those were younger days. And
hey, I'm excited about this guest, but I think he's going to be. I think he's. We'll see. I'm curious. I think he's going to take a different take than what I take.
Well, we're going to find out here in a minute. He's over our heads again. Another guest that's way smarter than us.
Yeah, over. But
let's go meet him.
All right, I'm in.
All
Let's
right.
do it. See you on the other side.
All right.
All right. Let's meet this guy. I want to hear about him, Sam, when he comes.
There he is.
There he is.
You see why I like the guy?
I recognize that face. Look, he has a wall that's similar to the wall you used to have.
You're gonna have to put something on your wall, Derek.
I don't work remote a ton, and so I'm not used to using this. I'm using a backup camera. It's not pointed exactly where I normally would have it pointing. So plain wall is going to be the way we go today, I guess.
That's all right.
You see what I finally did with mine. Derek's seen this a few times.
You make those yourself?
Well, that's way beyond my creative abilities.
Those are the Rorschach tests that he took, and
I thought maybe those were like your attempts, and you've lined them up in the order that you thought showed progress. I'm not.
I think it was just misaligned.
I think he's right in our camp, Sam. I think he's in our camp.
Mark, we've got another guy today for a guest that once again is way brighter than you and I.
Well, it doesn't.
I know this guy for a long time, and he gave a talk at the HR Leadership Council conference few weeks ago. It was, and I attended the breakout session. It was amazing. It was really all I could hear sitting there the entire time is your voice, Mark, going, "Is AI going to kill us?" So that's what you got, Derek. Your job today. By the way, Derek teaches at is it Illinois State? That's right. Illinois State University in the HR department.
We don't set the bar very high here, Derek.
Just straighten me out anytime, Derek. I got a little confused there. But he's done multiple jobs. I'm going to post his bio on our BuzzFeed and our YouTube channel so you can see how smart he is. But so, Derek, I let Mark ask this question. I'm not going to presume to own the question, Mark.
What?
Is AI going to kill us?
AI going to kill us? No. You know what? Here's the thing, Derek. I already know what you're going to do. You're going to promote the positive aspects of AI in education and all of that. And I'm telling you, you're going to be the death of us. No, just kidding. What? I mean,
well, you had some great points that I hadn't thought of in your breakout session, you know, and so I thought, well, maybe I can settle Mark down a little bit, and Derek can talk to him, and
all right.
You know,
so do you
alleviate his fears?
Derek, do you want to make an opening statement, or can I? You want me to just go right in and? Okay.
This is your podcast. I don't want to assume anything. Go ahead.
All right.
Well, that's your first mistake right there.
Yeah, I know. No, okay. First of all, AI is only as smart as it's trained to be. Correct?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. That's fair.
I mean, and it just like Pac-Man swallows up that information. So if let's just stay in your milieu, if our students take that as the gospel in doing papers or whatever, let's forget about the fact that the lack of critical thinking, but they could be publishing erroneous information.
Yeah, I think you could do that without AI. I think you could take information that's bad information or information from anywhere. You could publish that erroneously. I think that the thing that's probably scaring a lot of folks with AI is the speed at which this is produced, right? And so typically, if I was going to produce something be nefarious, I was going to intentionally put something out there that I know is either not true or I'm not sure is true, or all of those things. It would take me a little bit more time to do so, right? I would maybe we're gonna stick in that realm of what you like writing a paper. So I'm gonna write a paper and I'm gonna make up sources, and Time Magazine didn't exactly say what I wanted it to say, so I'm gonna kind of shave that a little bit and say it said this other thing instead. So I think that it's making it tougher for fact checking. It's making it tougher for reference checking for folks. I know that students that have used this prior in even my courses that I'm not aware of, but I'm sure they have presented information in a 5 to 7 minute public speaking test speech, and I'm not sure that everything in there was completely accurate. And so, is AI going to be the death of us? Something's going to be the death of us, right? Something is going to. I don't know if it's going to be AI. I don't know if something else is going to beat it to the punch or not. And I'm just going to back up a second and say a couple things. One is, if there was anything that was completely a great point in those breakout sessions, Sam, I'm sorry I stumbled upon that. And the second thing is, when you're calling me the smartest person you know, I got to tell you, you need to meet some more people right now.
Well, we do have a very limited amount of people we know, and
yeah, plus where we came
from. Mark's sequestered out there in a farm in Northern California. Who knows what goes on out there? And do you have running water there now, or what's the?
Yes, we do. I squeeze it out of the apples, I distill it, and that's what we use to bathe in. That's why we all smell like fruit.
How many times a month does Sam call you and say, what time is it there? How many times a month is that?
I tell him it's Lake County time.
Math is hard, Derek. Math is hard.
So here's what I'm not going to say a bunch of things that are positive about AI, but I will tell you that I'm a fan of being curious. of whatever's out there. I was a fan of being curious when the internet came along and figuring out, what it would do, what it wouldn't do. And I am sorry, I've got the white background and I've got this camera that's absolutely not doing anything for me. It's been a while since I worked in radio, and we used to get AP wire across a dot matrix printer. And so I've embraced the technology that advanced there that we were able to use. I'm curious about AI. I'm curious about LLMs or large language models. I'm curious about image searches. I'm curious about the tools out there and what they will and won't do. And so some of the things that we're doing in classes are doing some writing, and then we're doing some idea generation, and then asking AI like a Chat GPT, or I'm a bigger fan of something like a Claude or a Perplexity or even a Google Gemini, and then asking it similar questions and then comparing the two and seeing sort of, what has it got right or wrong. It only has the information that's available to it. But Mark, I would tell you one of the beauty things of this is it has so much information available to it. So we're limited, but then we're not limited,
Well, so what are the differences, do you think, in the different platforms? Because I just go to Chat. I got the Google thing and I've got something else, but I just go to Chat GTP. I just go to the free version.
Yeah, and so I will also tell you that I'm as cheap as I look. I have not paid up for any of the premium versions, but I know that the students are using ChatGPT, so I just want to get an idea of what that was doing. And so I went over to Perplexity because a colleague of mine and I were studying. It does a lot more prompting on the front end of what kind of resources would you like to source your information from. So then you know that you're getting some more trusted resources, not just what's most popular, or what's most available, or what's trending right now. And then it also gives sources, citations, and it's less likely to, this term, hallucinate. So if you ask it a question and it really can't source the information or determine something, it may say something like, I'm not able to actually answer that question right now. So it'll actually say those things rather than hallucinate. So I like Perplexity that way. Claude, I will tell you, our chief AI person at ISU the other day, and this could change. I don't know when this podcast will come out, and it changes so quickly. If this podcast comes out a half hour from now versus an hour from now, Dr. Magnuson was telling me he really liked what Claude is bringing. And late breaking news, Alexa, if you use a Alexa device, they've just switched to AI by Claude. Anthropic is the name of the parent company, kind of like Alphabet's the parent of Google and Meta is the parent of Facebook. But right. Anthropic, it has this Claude, and it does math a little better than some of the other LLMs. And I always lean to another person I lean to is Dr. Elizabeth Adams out of Stanford, and she's with a think tank. And she always, I hear in the back of my head, when you go to try any new software, first look up their ethics statement, look up their data usage statement, look up their liability statements, like look at those and read those. And if you search those three things and you can't find an ethics or a moral statement, that doesn't mean they're really moral or ethic. I mean, obviously there are plenty of people that have morality and ethic clauses that aren't that. But if you don't, and you haven't even thought about it, it's kind of a sign to
a red flag.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different reasons. Like accuracy is one reason I like some different platforms. The softness is some reasons I like some of the platforms. The tone of the response, or the length or the brevity, all those things are different for different platforms. But again, I'm only using the free versions also, but I don't want to use ChatGPT too much because I want to make sure that I'm trying some of the other, they're niche right now sort of platforms. But remember when we started, remember how big Yahoo was? Yahoo was the search engine. Mm-hmm. And now if you ask anybody what the search engine is, we're going to all say Google, but in like 5 years, the kids are going to say TikTok, because that's where all the searching is being done.
There was, remember Northern Lights? Wasn't Northern Lights in Yahoo, before Yahoo?
Netscape, right?
Netscape. I mean, whenever you see someone's it's Yahoo or AOL, you're going, oh my gosh, how long have you?
I still have an AOL account.
Yeah, you probably do.
I use it for trash. If you have to sign up and give an email address to get on, they get AOL.
They get the AOL.
That
Okay.
tracks, but I will tell you another thing that an AI software does. There's another, it's like a, and I wish I had the name of it at my fingertips, but there's an email generator for when you say that, Sam. There's a new software where it generates a dedicated email for a service. So like if you wanted to sign up for, I don't know, you want to sign up for Walmart grocery delivery, right? And you have to put in an email. It will generate an email that's specific for that one, and it avoids, if you get hacked in that email, it doesn't hack then across all of your different things. So, so now you don't have to necessarily hang on to that AOL if you don't want to.
See,
But I would tell you,
those are the positive. That's the
AOL is going to come back. It's going to make a comeback. I'm pretty sure. And then everybody's going to be coming to me.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the BlackBerry to return, Sam.
Yeah. Hey, and by the way,
mine's a Palm Pilot. You know, I'm sure the Palm Pilot's coming back.
And I may have to cut out a little early. I have a stack of videos I have to return to Blockbuster here. So
yeah. Oh well.
Hey, I want to show you my shirt, Derek. See my shirt?
Yeah.
Mediocrities. Okay.
Well,
good enough, man.
And that means you'll have to come over near us because that Blockbuster is in Bend, Oregon.
That one that's left, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
I've been to Bend, Oregon a couple times.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very popular place in the last 10 years. Okay, so 2 questions. One, if I ask ChatGPT a question and then I go over to one of the others and ask them the same question, am I going to get the same information?
I would say no, and it's mainly because it's this AGI or this generative component to it. So this generative AI. Sometimes they say GAI, and sometimes they put the G in the middle. Right. And so it really is taking available data and making new, and I'm using air quotes, content for you out of that. I will tell you, Mark, I have though taken a response from GPT that I didn't like, and it allows you to regenerate, ask again or clarify. I've taken some things I haven't liked from there, and I've actually put them in somewhere like a Gemini and said, I prompted ChatGPT online with this question and this prompt, quote, and I said, I didn't really care for their response, which was this, quote, and their response. Is there a way you could clean that up and make it more appropriate for X audience, or make it more tonally appropriate for a friendly conversation? And I will tell you, I don't know this for a fact because I'm not in on the ground floor with these. I live in Central Illinois. I bought this tie at a Goodwill. I don't have stock or value in any of these companies, but there's a little tinfoil hat in me that says, I wonder if by putting that in there, they pre-programmed or that large language model has learned that when I mention another service, it gets competitive and it decides it's going to try harder or get more.
Or it's going to tweak it to where they think you might like it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought.
And also, Sam, you said you have not paid up for this stuff. I will also tell you that a friend of mine told me if you were using the free service and continuing with Google and not signing up with your own username and password, you are spending the most, right? Because you're sharing data. You've allowed or you've checked off a box that says, sorry, I've got a dog in here that's going to start scratching at his neck for an hour or so. So there's a noise in the background.
Bring him in.
Well, bring him in. We've had it. We've seen everything on this podcast.
His name's Frank, but he doesn't hear well. So I would snap or clap at him.
What'd you say?
So, okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Then, okay. So that leads me to the fact that, okay, we're all, at least Sam and I are old enough. I don't know about you, but we go back to Cronkite, right? And news. We go back to when 3 stations and they all reported the news.
Yeah.
There was no take on it. There was no opinion. There was no, spin. It was the news. Here's what's happening internationally. Here's what's happening, Now you have all these networks. You have MSNBC and NBC that lean a little to the left of center. You have Fox News that leads a little to the right of center. You have CNN that's supposed to be down the middle, but even they are sort of tweaking a little bit, So with these different AI platforms, are we going to run into a bias?
Yeah, I think you are, and I think we already are. There's a term called algorithmic accuracy. It's again from Dr. Elizabeth Adams from Stanford, and she's kind of pointed it out for. And depending on what you put in there and you're generating, it's using available content, and there's already a bias. If we can agree that there's some sort of bias in our society, that even with the Cronkites of the world, or the Dan Rathers, or the Tom Brokaws back in his early day, that there's still a little bit of bias that would seep into that, even with an Edward R. Murrow, it would seep into that because you're seeing it through the lens of one person who has a lived experience, which is common with a number of other people, but it is not common with some other folks. And so Elizabeth Adams would point out that already some of your image searches have, that's where you can kind of test it and start to see that bias. If you ask for a father and I showed this one in our example, Sam, if you ask for a father and son near a train station, again, it's taking a lot of information, Mark. So I continued free with Google in this search. So it probably knows some things about my buyer behavior, about my consumer behavior, about my personal behavior. And so I wasn't surprised when it presented me with what looked like me, a middle-aged white man, balding with grayish beard, and a young son standing near an Amtrak. And it gave me 3 options of that were those same flavors. And I went to another search engine, which didn't know or hasn't known as much about me. It gave me similar, but much younger father. And so you already start to see that bias. So what you're leading to
yeah,
is,
I thought that example there you gave at the talk with the pictures was wonderful. I
That's
kind
it.
of framed it for me as like, I never thought about that. Yeah, of course they're shading it.
Up information anytime, just like everything we do, and it has been for the last 20 years, it's just gathering information on every one of us. Once we went down this digital road, there's no getting away from it.
You're right, and so you asked earlier, or you did.
But now there's a mechanism that will be able to take that information and create a smarter criminal.
So that's true across the board, right? The smarter the security features get, the smarter the criminals get. AI is probably going to spell towards the end of the Turing test, or the CAPTCHA, those things that are that CAPTCHA. It's an acronym, and I wish I could think of it right now, but it stands for essentially proving that you're a human, not a computer animation. You're doing the
It stands for pissing me off.
Well, it probably stands a little bit for that too. But you
pick the bridge out. Pick the bridge out. Well,
you did a premise earlier. It only knows what it's learned or what it's been taught, and that's where we got from. There used to be machine level learning or machine learning that was supervised and then self-supervised, and now it's somewhat unsupervised. And so whatever's available is what this is consuming. And if you can think about some of the vitriol or just some of the junk and the garbage that we put out there. I mean, I'm not going to pick on TikTok like I'm an older person, but at the same time, I have kids that scroll through that. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot of time to scroll through junk. But if that's what it's consuming, that's what it's going to think. Earlier,
that was our YouTube at one time. We talked about going down the rabbit hole with YouTube.
Yeah, but what did we have when we were in high school, Mark?
We had the Mug Drive-In.
The Mug Drive-In. We drove around that.
We'd go over to the Mug Drive-In. It was just like out of American Graffiti. We'd open the back trunk with somebody gotten a case of Boone's Farm. And then we found out where the party was, usually Green River Road. And then we'd head out there. And
I have a serious HR question, because our franchise uses Google.
Mm-hmm.
And we use Gmail, but they have blocked us from access to any AI.
Your franchise is
blocked us for access because of the liability issues with someone going, one of the offices going to chat GTP or Genius or whatever, and creating a job description that is EOC, not EOC friendly.
Okay.
So and my pushback to them was, okay, you're worried about chat GTP, doing this, but what about humans doing it? Humans violate EOC stuff all the time.
I think one of the again, I don't want to lean too much on the positive because I am also concerned. I mean, I have kids. Those kids are probably going to have kids. I am concerned about where this is leading us. At the same time, the toothpaste is out of the tube, so let's see what we can do with this mess.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
It
but
is.
what you said, Sam, I'm surprised because something you could use even an LLM for, or any of these LLMs for, is to have a job description that a human wrote, and then actually put it in as a, because you can put in blocks of text and say, can you review this for EEOC one compliance and viability? Can you review this for ADA purposes? Can you review this for you saw in the presentation, I think the presentation I gave you had this in it. But I have a friend that uses 11 Labs, and it's a audio LLM, and it allowed me to drop my voice into the platform in a video of mine, and then it samples my voice and gave it back my voice doing Spanish.
That was an amazing
It's
video. I'm
incredibly
telling you.
scary. This whole voice reproduction is incredible. And we all know the story about the lady whose son supposedly called her up and said, "I've been in an accident. I need, you know, whatever." And it was, you know, and she sends it to him.
Mark, you should have heard this video that, or what I can't remember if it was a video or a recording of Derek's, that I was like, that is some off the hook stuff.
It is. It's pretty fantastic. I don't know if the audio picks up.
Now, I don't know Spanish, so it could have been gobbledygook. I don't know, but it sounded really good.
Yeah,
looked good.
So the same thing though, I can take that audio transcript that's in Spanish and I can dump that Spanish back into an LLM and I can say, translate this from Spanish back to English, just to see if there's any sort of context missing or if it missed some words. And hey, I'm from Tazewell County, so the way I pronounce things, who knows what it's going to come up with.
Yeah, but Mark and I are from Mount Vernon, Illinois. You know, we're hillbillies, so
we're fixing it.
We're fixing to do stuff and wash cars.
That wash, don't get me started on the washing.
We used to play in the creek when we were kids.
Okay, so here so listen, nobody's denying the positive, the assistance it gives you, the efficiency, the
Mark
speed,
wants to dwell on the negative. Here it comes.
The speed it gives you. Unfortunately, I can dwell on negative all I want. Like Derek said, the toothpaste is out of the tube. I mean, this has been developing since the 50s. But personalization, customization, all of that is fantastic. I mean, even now, typically Sam and I, we interview writers, published writers. And one of the things we always ask is, how do those publishers feel about AI? And they say that's one of the first questions they ask. Did you use AI at all in this book? And that's one of the rules. No, you cannot.
So that's funny that's being said. I've got Angela Duckworth, who wrote the book Grit. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Grit, yeah.
She's a professor, I think, at UPenn, and she's got her second book coming out. She brags on her podcast that and I'm not going to cross promote other podcasts in your podcast.
We don't care.
Podcast, that she always leaves a tab open with either GPT or something like a Gemini or a Claude open when she gets stuck. And she used it for help with some of her chapter summaries in her book. She wrote her book, but for some of her chapter summaries, she used it, and it told her things that she wasn't seeing in her blind area, which were, well, your chapter 3 and your chapter 4 and your chapter 7 start out exactly the same way, so you need to probably mix that up.
Efficiency.
But I will tell you, I have a good friend who is a high school English teacher, and ChatGPT is the bane of his existence right now.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
how are they fighting that? That's my thing, is how.
Well, I've read this. This is because people say, well, now we have software that'll catch AI, professors like this. But what they're saying is that software is only as good as the AI. In fact, that software could end up penalizing that person and say they plagiarized, and in actuality, they didn't. And so they've been falsely accused.
You know what's tough is, so you mentioned your news example, and I'm going to go with the premise that it was just the news for a second. The biggest thing about that was the access that the people that were sitting on cameras like this that were being pointed at them were giving us. They had more access, more evidence more material, more resources than anyone else. What technology has done in the last however many years you want to say, but it's fascinating. Somebody was telling me the other day, like I have an iPhone, right? And if I get the iPhone 16 at my salary, I have exactly the same most powerful phone in the world as LeBron James, who's making clearly more than my salary, more than the president of the United States. Like we have the same technology. And what's scary there is your AI example is the technology has become right. You've got this sort of it becomes this paired. You've got the people that are reviewing are using the same technology as the people that are building or doing are using. When the news folks used to come on, they had more information, so we were all consuming that. And then if we wanted to argue amongst ourselves, we'd have to then break out a paper and read that news again, and we weren't an authority. But now you're using the same tools, and the hackers are using the same tools, these LLMs, to hack as the people who are using them to build anti and unhackable type of things. So it's really weird that we're getting to this. What's the word I'm looking for that has the word pair in it? It's the same thing we say about football teams when it dilutes the league and it's just this they're equally
Parody.
Parody. Thank you very much, Sam. I could have used my LLM and just asked it.
Yeah, I could. I did. Who knows if I did? I might have actually did that. I don't know.
But
I sometimes stumble onto shit. I don't know what it is.
But I won't just focus on the positive, because I will say, Mark, I love that you're asking these questions and you're asking them to me, and I don't have all the answers. I'm really borrowing the knowledge and standing on shoulders of other people. But they're questions that I will take back to those people, and I will say, it's the same way that Elizabeth Adams will tell us, hey, does this really look like it's representative of the society? Are we missing people when it produces a picture? And then if we're doing this, and my friend who's in ISO, I have a information security officer, I completely always ask that person, hey, I'm reading this about some of the new LLM technology. Where are your concerns at? Are they concerns of the people that have access to these same tools to break in as the same tools that we have to build the anti-break-in stuff? And listening to them talk about that, because they have the connections then back to these software companies, at least a little more than I do, to say, have you thought about, and can we contain, and is there somewhere we could put some sort of guardrails on this a little bit for maybe.
How do you do that? I don't know how you do the guardrails. I mean, the thing is out of the bag. And here's the thing. I am thinking 20 years from now.
Yeah.
I think in a capitalistic world, they're thinking 20 hours from now. And people writing are thinking 20 hours from now. I'm thinking 20 years from now. So my spin on the negative, like you say, focusing on the negative, it's because I'm thinking, where is this taking us? Not because, listen, I plan on using AI, Sam, when I finally get around to putting my little book together for, just anecdotes of Happy Friday and recipes and people's favorite, things like that. I'm
you probably need to start doing that now.
I know. I'm going to use AI, but it doesn't mean that 20 years from now, the lack of critical thinking. At what point does that become, Derek, as an educator? At what point does that become an epidemic?
That's so I'm thinking 20 years ahead as well, Mark, or somewhere near that. And I'm worried a little bit. There's a guy named Kurzweil who is the chief futurist of Google. And he was with a think tank that came up with the term AI, artificial intelligence, back in the 60s. And he is a believer in, if you're following like the Elon Musk and the chip in the brain, the singularity type of things, where people start to get an implant where it will feel like Bradley Cooper in Limitless, where you can do anything because it's just you understand and learn that stuff. And so there is a concern for me that goes to that sort of sci-fi area, but even just short of the sci-fi area, just how it's building on itself. So I think the folks are thinking about that, but again, that the toothpaste is out of the tube. I know that some people like Khan Academy, if you're familiar with it, it's like an online learning platform for students who don't have access to calculus teachers and things like that. That's how it started. And they have their own AI called Conmingo, I think it is. And they put guardrails on it. It will only go so far in answering. So they've started to think about ways to put AI out there that only does so much. But you're right, with capitalists, I can see that the only guardrails are if you can afford the upgrade, then you can get to the next level. You can afford the upgrade, you get to the next level.
Exactly.
It is,
They sell those, they push out the guardrails for a price, you know.
it is a little bit I don't know, it's concerning. It's probably more than concerning. That said, I'm trying to figure out and dip my toe in it so I can have intelligent conversations about it with the people who know a little bit more. Because probably about 6 months ago, if I'd be having these conversations, which I was, I didn't know as much about it. And so I made some assumptions in there about what it would do. And Sam and I had a question at the breakout session, can it find me a picture of this specific place at the specific time, etc. And my statement was poor in the way I responded to it, but really, since it's AGI and it's generative AI, it can try to source something like a picture from that, and it'll generate you something that's like it, but not exactly. I think there's a lot to learn from it, but I want to stay just curious enough and use it just enough so that when someone tells me in live time, until they come up with the thing that's just as convincing as those holograms in Scooby-Doo, as soon as they tell me something, I'll go, oh, that doesn't sound right. And it'll tip something because I've used it and that doesn't feel like my experience. So I appreciate that you're thinking about it and you're asking questions. I wish we had a better conduit to ask the questions of the people that are at the top and building it and these software companies to say.
Well, I think, I think all it takes is, I don't know, a tragedy or something like that where.
Yeah, but the tragedy could be a long-term, some tragedies take forever to happen. And,
yeah.
What do your students say about it? I mean, I know I have grandkids and they're sort of.
I think students are only thinking 20 hours out.
I mean, you work with some bright people and the students are bright, but they grew up in a different time,
I have a mix. I have a group of students that feel it's like gamification, right? So it's almost like you used to, I don't know what, play Merlin, like the little handheld Merlin and ask questions and you'd answer questions, that sort of thing. They see it that way where they're asking questions and answering questions. Or like your little Clippy that used to show up as a Microsoft helper and say, what are you looking for? You type something. Yeah, remember those? But they see it that way. I have students that haven't used it at all, and we're starting to just talk about what it's like to use it. And I have students that have used it far more than I have. But when I say far more, probably for the same purpose, not for a variety of purposes. Maybe a variety, like they built their own workout plan and they wrote a paper and they asked for negotiation strategies for buying a used car, right? So those are three different things, but they are three different, but they're still pretty limited on the types of answers they're getting. So they're curious, but they are probably also like the three of us concerned because those will be entering the workforce, which will be quite different over the next 2 years.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
And so those of us who have been in the workforce longer, like the three of us, we're in our 30s, so it'll be we've got a shorter time to go before retirement.
Well, I think, I wonder, you were in staffing too, right? I mean, didn't you have, and I think about the jobs, and I think staffing world has changed. I can't attribute it to AI, but I do think, when I look at some of the jobs we staffed over the years, I'm thinking, well, it wouldn't take much on AI's part to replace this one.
As soon as the costs of robotics and the AI and all of that come down,
it's there already. You're going to McDonald's and use a kiosk to order, but I don't even. I have certain hotels I stay at when I travel a lot. I just go to the room. I book my room in the car. When I get to the hotel, I walk right past the desk up to the room, use my phone, and walk into the room. I don't deal with a pimply faced kid behind the desk. I don't fill out any forms. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, two things. One, this is a podcast that's going to be broadcast. Do people know you're on the run and that you're traveling a lot? I don't know.
I changed my name.
Because my hotel registration.
I use AI to produce a name for me, and it's also my stripper name, by the way.
Oh, I just use Sam Lewis, so I don't know.
Well, that's okay. They could be,
Same.
the more
But
Sam Lewis is, the better for me.
The second thing is, I will tell you that AI will hopefully, I mean, the positive would be AI will allow us to be more human and have these sort of interactions and have time to do more of this. And I also will say that right now, AI is at a place where even though it's self-supervised or unsupervised learning, I think that there's enough humans that don't trust it enough that still your jobs are for people who know how to use AI and not necessarily jobs specifically for the AI. And I think back about that other example, and this isn't AI, but this is robotics. I think about the friend at the end of the street here, and there was a farmer I drove by his field the other day, and he had a Roomba-like mower running.
We have none out here.
And again, it will only take a tragedy before something like that happens, or like a self-driving car, anything else. But I think about those jobs, and I think about how you still need people at this right now. You need people that know how to build them or know how to work with the software for then the robotics that build those other robots. And you have to have people that come in to help shut it down and maintain and recognize when they're fixing, because humans get context, humans get common sense, right? Humans get sarcasm, humans get those things right now, and we're not at that place yet for AI. That said, I don't know where we're at on the S curve.
Well, I just hope I'm not being my great grandfather or whatever, because radio said when television first came out, they said never be as big as radio. When color came out and it went from black and white to color, that a lot of people, the shift was I don't know.
Well, the horse and buggy's pretty much gone.
Yeah, horse and buggy, the buggy whips, all of that. But
hey, listen, I hate to say this, but we're out of time. So I want everybody to stare at the camera like I'm going to take a picture. Smile. All right, that's perfect. Derek, I thank you so much. Kind of at a late notice, and it's been a wonderful conversation. I know it didn't appease Mark.
We'll do it again some other time, and I'll talk about how we're really using it in the field of HR.
I would love to talk about that.
Examples. Yeah. And then the one I didn't shout out earlier, when we talked about all these other services, Otter AI is something people are using right now, and it's a note taker AI that plugs and plays with a lot of things. It's probably one that I'd say you could kind of take a look at. And Microsoft Copilot's going to get better, so that's another one. But
I gotta go. We're gonna get that off.
Sorry.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next time I'll be a robot.
Bye-bye.
Good. 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 Enough. As good enough.